I'm 27 now, and I've been through some genuinely terrifying situations since then, but there's one weekend from when I was 17 that still makes me check every room in my apartment before I go to bed. Even now, even knowing I'm alone, I still do it without thinking. At the time, it was supposed to be the easiest money I'd ever make. A simple house-sitting job. The kind where you basically get paid to hang out, watch TV, and make sure nothing goes wrong. The neighbors asked me to do it. They lived 4 houses down from my parents, and they were the kind of people everyone trusted by default. Tom and Linda Fisher, friendly, normal, quiet. The kind of couple that waved every morning and brought cookies over during the holidays. Their house was in a subdivision that felt as safe as a place could get. Cookie-cutter houses, trimmed lawns, basketball hoops and driveways. Looking back, I think that's part of why what happened stuck with me so badly. It didn't feel like the kind of place where something like this should even be possible. They had a golden retriever named Bailey. He was old, calm, and mostly slept all day. Tom joked that Bailey would probably forget I was even there. They were leaving on a Thursday afternoon. Tom came over to walk me through the house, while Linda sat in the car with the engine running because they were already running late for their flight. He showed me where Bailey's food was and told me to feed him twice a day, morning and evening. He mentioned the mail usually came around 2 and to just bring it inside and leave it on the counter. He talked about the thermostat, said they kept it at 68 and I could bump it up a degree or 2 if I got cold, but not to go crazy because their heating bill was already high enough. He showed me where they kept spare flashlights in a kitchen drawer and pointed out the breaker box in the garage. Then he mentioned the basement. He said there was no reason for me to go down there. It was just storage and the water heater. If I heard any knocking or weird sounds, it was probably the pipes. Nothing to worry about. I nodded like I was listening, but honestly, my mind was already somewhere else. I was thinking about what I'd order for dinner and what I'd watch on their big TV. They left around 5. The first thing I did was let Bailey out into the backyard. He sniffed around for a while, did his business, and came back inside. I fed him around 6 and then settled into the living room. The Fishers just had a massive TV and a really comfortable sectional couch, way nicer than anything at my parents' place. I scrolled through Netflix, picked an action movie, and ordered a pizza. Bailey lay on his bed near the hallway, barely moving. When the pizza arrived, I ate it on the couch while he watched me with those slow, hopeful dog eyes. I gave him a small piece of crust, which he took gently, then went right back to lying down. Everything felt normal, relaxed, exactly how I expected the weekend to be. Around 10:30, during the second movie, Bailey suddenly lifted his head. His ears went up, and his whole posture changed. He stared down the hallway toward the back of the house. I paused the movie and listened. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I caught it. A faint sound, not footsteps, more like something scraping or shuffling. Slow, uneven. Bailey stood up and walked toward the hallway, tail low. I followed him, telling myself it was nothing. The hallway passed a bathroom and the laundry room and ended at the basement door. The sound was coming from down there. Bailey stopped in front of the door and let out a low growl. I'd never heard him make that sound before. I stood there for a second, trying to rationalize it. Tom had already explained it. Pipes, old house. I wanted it to be the pipes. I opened the basement door a crack and flipped the light switch just inside. A single bulb turned on at the bottom of the stairs. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, boxes stacked along the walls. The water heater sat in the far corner. Nothing looked out of place. I stood at the top of the stairs and waited. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Hello, I called, immediately feeling stupid. No response. Bailey stayed tense, staring down the stairs. I closed the door and went back to the living room, but the mood was gone. I kept glancing toward the hallway, half expecting to hear the sound again. Around 11:15, I decided to sleep. The guest bedroom was upstairs at the end of the hall. Bailey followed me and lay down outside the door facing the stairs. That actually made me feel better. I left the door cracked and scrolled on my phone for a while. I must have fallen asleep around midnight. I woke up to Bailey barking. I checked my phone, 2:47 a.m. Bailey was still in the hallway, barking down toward the first floor. All the lights downstairs were off. I was sure I'd left a lamp on. I flipped the hallway light switch. Nothing happened. Tried the guest room light. Still nothing. The power was out. I turned on my phone flashlight and went downstairs. Bailey followed me, whining now. The living room was dark. The TV was off. The lamp was off. And the pizza box was not there. I know I'd left it on the coffee table. I remember deciding not to throw it away before going upstairs. It wasn't in the trash. I checked the back door. Locked. Front door. Locked. Bailey stopped in front of the basement door again. I leaned down and pressed my ear against it. Silence. I reached for the doorknob. It was warm. I pulled my hand back as I heard it. Breathing. Quiet. Controlled. From the other side of the door. Someone was standing there. I didn't think. I grabbed Bailey's collar, ran to the front door, and bolted outside into the cold night air in my socks. I stood on the lawn, shaking, holding Bailey, and called 911. I told the operator there was someone inside the house I was house sitting. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house while I stayed outside. When they came back out, one of the officers was carrying a sleeping bag and a backpack. They'd found them in the basement, hidden behind the water heater, along with food wrappers, water bottles, and my pizza box. Someone had been living down there. They'd entered through a small basement window that had been pried open weeks earlier. The breaker box was in the basement. That's how the power was cut. They never found who it was. What still bothers me is that first night, when I opened the basement door and saw nothing. They were already there, hiding, watching me look for them. And when I closed the door and walked away, they stayed. Because the scariest things aren't the ones that break in loudly. They're the ones that are already inside.